Why do the kindest people often get the worst treatment? You give, you help, you go out of your way to be a good person, and somehow people still ignore your needs, cross your boundaries, and take you for granted. It's not fair, but it is real. This isn't a rant against kindness. Kindness is a virtue when used wisely. But when kindness is given without limits, without standards, without self-respect, it doesn't inspire gratitude. It invites exploitation. And that's the trap. You're not weak, you're not naive. But if you don't understand how your kindness is being received, or worse, how it's being used against you, you'll keep getting caught in the same cycle. Giving too much, receiving too little, and wondering why you feel so drained. This video is not about turning cold or shutting people out. It's about learning the Stoic principle of boundaries, how to balance generosity with self-respect, how to stay compassionate without being walked on, and most importantly, how to make your kindness command respect instead of costing it. We're going to break down 7 powerful truths, lessons from both ancient philosophy and modern life, that will forever change the way you think about kindness. Because the goal isn't to stop giving, it's to stop giving yourself away. And if you've ever felt taken for granted, if you've ever thought, maybe I'm too nice, this is the video you've been needing. Stay with me until the end, because what you'll learn might just save you years of silent resentment and teach you how to turn your kindness into a strength that no one will ever mistake for weakness again. Let's begin. Number 1. People value what they have to earn. There's something about human nature we don't like to admit, but we see it every day. People don't value what they don't have to earn. You show up for everyone. You never say no. You always answer the late-night call. Always help, always smile, always give. And slowly, quietly, your kindness becomes invisible. It stops feeling like a gift. It starts looking like a service. You're no longer appreciated for what you offer, because what you offer is expected. You've become predictable, automatic, taken for granted. At first, it's confusing. You ask yourself, why don't they appreciate me? You start feeling overlooked, maybe even used. But the truth is, people are just responding to the unspoken terms you set. Because when you give without pause, without boundaries, without making people earn a place in your energy, you teach them that your time has no value. And what costs nothing is respected the same. We've seen this before. A free giveaway is ignored. A luxury item, scarce and limited, coveted. It's not just about the quality, it's about the effort it takes to get it. The same goes for you. When your kindness flows without intention, it loses its weight. When your yes comes too easily, it means nothing. And when people can cross your boundaries without resistance, they stop seeing you and start using you. The Stoics knew this long before us. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." But being good does not mean being easy. It doesn't mean saying yes to everything or giving endlessly to everyone. True kindness must be grounded in self-respect. That's why boundaries are essential, not to withhold love, but to give it more meaning. You are not a bottomless well for the thirsty. You are a source of strength, and people should come to you with humility, not entitlement. When your kindness is measured, it becomes powerful. When it's chosen, not automatic, it becomes valuable. And when people know they have to earn your yes, they stop taking it for granted. So stop cheapening your goodness. Don't be the one they only notice when you disappear. Be the one they respect while you're here. Because kindness, when given with wisdom, commands reverence. And that is the Stoic way. Number 2. Unchecked kindness can make you seem weak. Let's be honest, there's a reason the phrase "too nice" exists in American culture. People use it all the time and not as a compliment. Because here's the truth. If you're always agreeable, always bending over backward, always putting everyone else's needs above your own, you might think you're being a good person. But others? They might just see someone easy to manipulate. Kindness without boundaries doesn't look like strength. It looks like submission. And it's not because people are inherently bad. It's just human nature. In the workplace, in families, in friendships, we respect people who have a spine. People who can say, "Sorry, I can't do that right now, without apologizing for having limits. And on the flip side, we start to take for granted those who never say no. Stoicism cuts through the noise here. The Stoics taught that real kindness must come from inner strength, not fear of rejection. If your yes is driven by guilt or by the fear of upsetting someone, then it's not kindness, it's self-erasure. Take Lisa, for example. She's that colleague who always picks up extra work, covers for late teammates, never complains. At first, everyone called her a team player, but fast forward 6 months, and her generosity has become the default. No more thank yous, no more recognition, just expectations. When she finally drew the line, when she told her boss she couldn't stay late again, the reaction wasn't support. It was disappointment, as if she'd broken an unspoken contract. But here's the kicker. The contract was one she never should have signed in the first place. Stoicism reminds us that saying no doesn't make you unkind. It makes you whole. It tells the world, I respect my time. I respect my limits. And if you want something from me, it has to be earned. The irony, once you set those boundaries, people start treating you differently, better. They may not always like it, but they respect it. Because in America, where hustle is glorified and burnout is common, someone who protects their energy stands out. So if your kindness is draining you, it's time to make a shift. Stop trying to be liked by everyone. Start standing up for yourself. Because true kindness isn't about saying yes to everything. It's about knowing when to say no and meaning it. Number 3, people test how far they can push you. People don't just see who you are, they test who you'll let them be around you. They push, gently at first. A small request, a late favor, a little intrusion on your time, your energy, your space. You let it go. You don't want conflict, you tell yourself it's not a big deal. But then it happens again. They show up late, and you say nothing. They offload their problems onto you, but never ask about yours. They make jokes at your expense, cross subtle lines, take more than they give. And you keep smiling, you keep saying it's fine. And here's what happens next. They push further. Not because they're cruel. Not always because they're trying to hurt you, but because that's how people operate. Whether they realize it or not, they're testing the edges, seeing where the line is, finding out how far they can go before you push back. And if you never push back, there is no line. So they keep going, they take more, expect more. And before you know it, you're no longer being kind, you're being used. The Stoics warned us about this long ago. They didn't tell us to be passive. They didn't say, accept mistreatment in the name of virtue. They said, know your worth, act with strength, and never surrender your principles for the sake of comfort. Marcus Aurelius wrote, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. If you constantly think of yourself as someone who must accommodate, must avoid confrontation, must be endlessly agreeable, your soul begins to reflect that belief. You start to shrink in your own life. But that's not kindness, that's erasure. Real kindness stands tall, like a river, flowing, generous, life-giving, but with banks, with direction, with power. When someone pushes your boundary, your response teaches them whether that boundary is real or just a suggestion. And if you don't hold the line, you're giving silent permission for disrespect to continue. Being stoic doesn't mean being cold. It means being intentional, being rooted, having the courage to say, this is who I am, this is what I will allow, and here's where I draw the line. You can be compassionate and firm. You can be kind and unshakable. That's the Stoic balance. Justice with courage, generosity with wisdom. So ask yourself, are people respecting you or just seeing what they can get away with? Remember, stand tall. Be kind. Number 4, it creates imbalance in relationships. Let's talk about imbalance, not the kind you feel in your schedule, but the kind that quietly poisons your relationships. You know the one. You're the one who always shows up, always listens, always makes the effort. You check in, reach out, lend a hand, stay up late, say yes when you're tired, give when you're empty. And what do you get in return? Silence, indifference, or worse, expectation. That's the hidden danger of unchecked kindness. It sets the stage for one-sided relationships, where one person gives and the other just takes. Over time, that dynamic corrodes everything. It breeds resentment, burnout, and a deep, aching sense of being invisible. Here's the Stoic truth. Kindness that flows in only one direction is not virtue. It's self-neglect wearing a smile. The ancient philosopher Seneca once said, "He who gives when he is asked has waited too long." He was reminding us that generosity is most powerful when it's intentional, not obligatory. But more importantly, that it must be met with mutual respect. Otherwise, it becomes a transaction with only one side paying the price. When a relationship, friendship, romantic or professional, relies entirely on your effort to keep it alive, it's not a bond, it's a burden. And if you're always the one compromising, always the one bending, always the one making peace, you're not in a relationship. You're in a quiet kind of servitude. And here's the harsh truth. People notice when you give endlessly, and they often assume it's because you have nothing else going on, that your time must not be valuable, that your yes costs you nothing. That's why Stoic wisdom calls for discernment. Kindness should never be blind. It should be measured. Because real, sustainable relationships are built on mutual recognition of effort, of worth, of limits. So what's the solution? Give, but give wisely. Say yes, but not to everything. Make space for others, but not at the expense of yourself. Your kindness should not be a silent sacrifice. It should be a conscious offering. And if the kindness is never returned, if the effort is never acknowledged, maybe the relationship was never real to begin with. A healthy connection is not built on how much you're willing to carry. It's built on how well you both walk side by side. Number 5. It makes you a target for manipulators. Let's get something straight. Manipulators don't chase strength. They chase softness, unguarded softness. They look for people who don't know how to say no, who flinch at conflict, who confuse being agreeable with being good. And once they find you, they don't come at you with aggression. They come with charm, flattery, smiles, requests wrapped in guilt. A little favor here, a harmless ask there. And before you know it, you're stuck in a pattern. Overgiving, overstretching, overcommitting. For someone who never intended to respect your boundaries in the first place. That's the problem with kindness when it's not paired with clarity. It becomes an open door, and not everyone who walks through it deserves to stay. Think of manipulators like pickpockets. They don't go after the person alert, walking with intention. They go after the one distracted, wide open, unaware of what's being taken from them. In the same way, emotional manipulators target those whose kindness lacks a guardrail. But Stoicism teaches us something radical, that true kindness is not naive, it's aware. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." In other words, you don't need to fight fire with fire, but you do need to stop offering gasoline. Being good doesn't mean being gullible. Being compassionate doesn't mean you're obligated to serve everyone who asks. There is strength in saying, "No, that doesn't work for me." There is wisdom in pausing before you please. Let me tell you this plainly. Protecting your energy isn't selfish, it's smart, it's compassionate, sat for yourself. Because if you don't protect your time, your values, your peace, someone will come along who has no problem spending them for you. Manipulators only thrive when you don't know your worth. The moment you draw a line, they either back off or reveal who they truly are. So ask yourself, am I being kind or am I being controlled? Am I giving because I choose to or because I'm afraid to say no? Kindness with wisdom earns respect. Kindness without it invites misuse. Choose wisely. Number 6. People see you as emotionally dependent. There's a quiet trap that many well-meaning people fall into, and it often hides beneath the surface of kindness. It's not about giving too much, it's about why you're giving. When your kindness is driven by a fear of being disliked, when you say yes just to avoid rejection, when you go out of your way not because you want to, but because you're terrified of being left out, that's not compassion. That's emotional dependence, and people feel it, sometimes without even realizing it. The energy shifts. Your kindness starts to feel less like a gift and more like a plea, a silent, desperate trade. If I'm nice enough, maybe you'll like me. Maybe you won't leave. But here's the hard truth. The more you rely on kindness to secure approval, the less people respect you. Because respect doesn't grow from neediness. It grows from self-assurance. We instinctively admire those who are grounded in their own worth. People who give because it aligns with their values, not because they're afraid of disapproval. We look up to those who stand firm in who they are, even when it's unpopular, even when it means being misunderstood. Stoic wisdom doesn't tell you to stop being kind. It tells you to purify your kindness. Strip it of attachment, of hidden motives, of the need to be liked. Epictetus said it best: "Seek not for events to happen as you wish, but wish them to happen as they do, and you shall have peace." In other words, stop trying to control how others feel about you. Start mastering what you bring to the table. Because when your kindness is built on emotional need, it becomes manipulative, whether you mean it or not. It pressures others. It silently demands something in return. And over time, that makes people pull away. But when your kindness comes from a place of fullness, from knowing who you are, what you stand for, and what you're not willing to compromise, it commands real respect. So ask yourself this: if no one ever noticed, thanked, or praised you, would you still be kind? If the answer is yes, then your kindness is real. It's rooted, it's free. But if the answer is no, if deep down you crave validation in return, it's time to re-anchor your actions to your values, not your fears. Because kindness should never be your strategy to belong. It should be your declaration that you already do. Number 7. True kindness comes from strength, not approval. True kindness doesn't beg for approval. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't wait for a thank you. And it certainly doesn't ask, "Do you like me now?" Because genuine kindness, the kind that lasts, that uplifts, that commands respect, comes from strength, not weakness, not insecurity, and not fear of being left behind. Yet far too often, we see people using kindness as a silent contract. If I do this for you, will you stay? Will you notice me? Will you love me? That's not kindness. That's negotiation disguised as virtue. The Stoics would have seen through it instantly. To them, a virtuous act is valuable because it is aligned with who you are, not because of what you hope to get in return. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you do the right thing, never mind whether anyone notices, because when you act with integrity, you never need validation." Ask yourself, when you go the extra mile for someone, is it because you truly want to, or because you're afraid of what will happen if you don't? Because here's what people pick up on, even if they don't say it. When your kindness is fueled by the need to be liked, it comes off as "I'm desperate." It makes others uncomfortable. They feel the hidden pressure, the unspoken trade-off. And over time, they stop respecting you, even if they keep accepting what you give. But when you're kind because you choose to be, because your values are rooted and your self-worth isn't hanging on anyone else's response, that's magnetic, that's powerful, that's rare. People admire those who give freely, not to gain attention, but because they're whole on their own, independent, grounded, strong. So here's the core message. Don't turn your kindness into a currency you spend to buy love, acceptance, or validation. Let it be a reflection of your character, not a reaction to your fear. Be kind because it's who you are, because you're strong enough to choose kindness, even when no one's watching, even when it's not returned, even when you stand alone. That's not just kindness, that's virtue, that's power, and that's the kind of person no one dares to take for granted. Kindness is a beautiful thing, but only when it's paired with wisdom. We live in a world that praises being nice, yet rarely teaches us how to be kind without losing ourselves in the process. Somewhere along the way, many of us were taught that being good means being agreeable, being helpful means being always available, and being kind means saying yes, even when it costs us our peace, our time, and our self-respect. But here's what Stoic philosophy reminds us, over and over again. True kindness is not blind, it is not desperate, and it is never born from weakness. Real kindness begins with self-respect. When you respect yourself, Your kindness gains weight. It carries substance. It's no longer something you hand out freely to anyone who demands it, but something you offer with intention. And that shift changes everything. Because let's be honest, when you give too much, too easily, people don't see a saint. They see someone they can push. They test your boundaries, not always because they're cruel, but because that's human nature. And if you haven't clearly drawn the line, they will keep moving it. This is where your dignity comes in. Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's self-preserving. It's not pushing people away, it's teaching them how to treat you. When you say no, not out of anger, but from clarity, you are honoring your own value. And that, paradoxically, is when others begin to value you too. Kindness without limits becomes people-pleasing. But kindness with clarity, that becomes character. And character is what endures. Don't be the person who gives endlessly in hopes of being liked. Be the person who gives because it aligns with their principles. Don't aim to be agreeable. Aim to be authentic. Don't settle for being needed. Be respected. So, take this with you. Kindness is not about pleasing everyone. It's about standing tall in your truth and choosing to be good even when you could be indifferent. It's about living with compassion, but never at the expense of your own soul. That is the Stoic way. That is the strong way. And that is the kind of kindness that changes everything. If this message resonated with you, if something deep inside whispered, "Yes, that's what I've been missing," then don't keep it to yourself. Support this channel. Click like, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more practical Stoic wisdom you can live by. Your support doesn't just help the algorithm, it helps build a community of people who are ready to live with clarity, courage, and conviction. And we're just getting started. In the next video, we'll explore how to command respect without losing your kindness. Because the goal isn't to become cold or distant. It's to become centered, self-respecting, and unshakable. So your kindness has roots, not just wings. Until then, live wisely, stand firm, and remember, you don't need approval to be kind, just the strength to be true to yourself. See you in the next one.